I think that was a real polite Southern way of just saying, I'm old. So I appreciate that, man. That's great.
Bless your heart.
Bless your heart. We'll keep you on the prayer list.
What's up, guys? Real quick, if you haven't joined my free Facebook group, Residential Real Estate with Jaron Sustar, yet, you need to scroll down to the show notes of this episode. Click the link to the Facebook group. It's completely free. Fantastic place to network and collaborate with other residential real estate investors all across the country so that you can continue to grow your real estate portfolio. I'm here with Perry Keenan, also known as the Flippin Mayor. Perry, what's up, man? How are you doing?
Dude, fantastic. How are you today?
I am good. I am excited to talk to you. We were talking before. We tried to get together last week, and whatever app I was using, I won't throw any names out there, but did not want to record podcasts. I think we made it through 7 minutes and it stopped recording, but we didn't know that it stopped recording. So we went about 45 minutes to an hour. And I found out later, well, that was a great conversation, but nobody else in the world is going to hear it except for me and you.
No, it was like two bros just hanging out talking real estate, man. It was awesome.
You can't beat that. But, here we are. I wanted to get it recorded because I thought it was very helpful for our listeners. So we're going to try it again. This is take two, everybody. And it was so good the first time that I just imagine it's going to be way better the second time. But Perry is an awesome guest. He's done a lot of cool things. Been the mayor in Pleasant View, Tennessee. He's done 40 plus deals. He started investing in 2005. He's been through a lot when it comes to real estate, which gives him a crazy awesome perspective compared to a lot of us who haven't been doing it quite as long. So, Perry, without stealing any more of your thunder, give us a little rundown about who you are, maybe outside of real estate, and then we can lead up to the real estate stuff here.
Yeah. So, and I think that was a real polite Southern way of just saying, I'm old. So I appreciate that, man. That's great.
Bless your heart.
Bless your heart. We'll keep you on the prayer list. Oh, that's excellent. Sorry, guys. We're throwing around Southern acronyms. So there it is. Oh, that's good stuff, man. Yeah. So started in politics in 2004. Started as city council and then moved up to vice mayor for our community of Pleasant View, Tennessee, which is right outside of Nashville. And in 2008, my wife and I, we'd been investing in real estate for about 2 years at that point, and the market crashed and we were stuck holding 5 mortgages. And man, I couldn't have gotten Bill Gates, Donald Trump, and Warren Buffett, all three combined, to buy a house, man. It was awful times. So stepped out of politics and focused on God, family, and work. And then in 2012, had 2 different people come up, or 3 different people in 2 weeks, that came up and said, you really ought to look at running for mayor. And it was kind of ironic because I had not really considered it at that point, and those 3 people did not know each other. So I felt like maybe God was trying to get my attention, and ran for mayor in 2012 and got elected, and then ran and got reelected in 2016, and spent 8 years in our hometown as mayor. And then after that, I said, you know what, I believe in self-imposed term limits, and decided I would not run for a 3rd term and give somebody else an opportunity to step in and lead the ship.
That's really cool. What's local politics like in a small town? I told you this before. I have really been toying. I had a meeting with a gentleman yesterday in our hometown to just kind of talk about the idea of me going into local politics. I'm not sold on it yet because I think there's some negatives. And I think it probably takes more time, like more of your time than you think going in. So from somebody who's done it, what's that world like?
So to be honest, you're going to get out of it whatever you put into it. I've seen people on city council or other communities that are similar in size and shape that they literally are just there to get a check. They attend the meetings and that's it. I've seen other people that, not bragging on me, but just how I was raised by my mom and dad. You either lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way, and that was just kind of that mindset that was drilled into me at a young age. And so I was not one to just sit back and coast. I always, tried to outwork and overdo and that type of thing, and got a lot out of it. Fortunately for us and our community and our city, it was at a really good time when they needed somebody that was aggressive to kind of step in and say, okay, the economy's getting back on track in 2012 and 2013. Economy's getting back on track, and we need to do some stuff to push our local economics. And I'm proud to say, during my 8 years as mayor, we had no city income tax or no city property tax. And for our city, we ended up with more money in the bank by the time it was all said and done after my 8 years than we'd ever had as a city as a whole. And then the other cool part was is that we did that just on sales tax revenue generated inside the city limits of Pleasant View. So I was aggressive, man. I was all about, let's grow this thing, and let's do Reagan Economics 101, and let's just knock it out.
Wow. And I guess you haven't been out too long then. If you started in what,
Mm-mm.
2012? It's only been what, 3 or 4
Yep,
years?
the December of retired out in December of 2020, and haven't looked back, man.
Wow, that's cool though, man. You did a fantastic job. You jumped in, you helped your community. That's amazing. I mean, I think local politics are so important, and local
Hmm.
community in general is important because obviously all those local communities are what make up this great country. And so if we have people who are passionate, wanting to grow, wanting to do the right things for their people, then it helps the country as a whole. And I think the older you get, you realize, you grow up and you're like, you see the federal government and the state government, all these pretty buildings.
Yes.
That's the cool stuff. But then you get older and you're like, no, like the meat and potatoes really happen at the local level. How do we take care of
Hmm. Yes, exactly. And honestly, there's days that I'd kind of beat my head against the wall and say, "Man, what am I doing? And why am I doing this?" Because it paid $1,000 a month, which is why I had to do real estate investing on the side to truly make up for that income. But it was one of those where sometimes you get people that talk about you on the internet, and we called them keyboard snipers and that kind of thing, where they would take pot shots at you on social media. But then when you'd see them at the local Dollar General or in the local Mexican restaurant, say, "Oh my goodness, how's your mama and them? I seen them kids the other day. They sure are growing up." And it's just like, what? No, like, you just talked trash about me last Friday night. Now you want me to be? I don't think so. So I
It's
had that part is difficult. I had to wrestle with that quite often.
Yeah, I can't imagine. When I was talking to my buddy yesterday, he was giving me some stories and just like, that example, like you said, with people in town and then the people that you may work with, they'll tell you they're going to do one thing on a vote, and then they get in there and they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to do that because I want to get revoted in." It's a wild world in the politics space, but I think there's a lot of good that can come from it. So you've really had two different, call it, careers of investing, right? Two
Hmm.
different careers of investing. And so I want to talk about that first because it started before the real estate crash or recession in 2008. So you guys started buying real estate in 2005. What
Hmm.
was your strategy then? You mentioned you got held holding five mortgages. What were you doing with
Yeah.
those five mortgages? How were you going about it at that time?
Yeah, good question, and good segue. So for us, I had a friend that took me to a Ron LeGrand seminar. Which, for people that may remember, Ron LeGrand was one of those late night gurus that would sell you his VHS tapes on how to buy foreclosure properties and get rich quick and that type of thing. And he was coming to Nashville, 2 day seminar, which was really just more or less a hook to try to get you to buy his $10,000 boot camp or whatever the price was. But I felt like I learned enough in that seminar to not have to do the boot camp and go out and try it on my own. And so I had a partner at the time. His name was Steve Outlaw. And Steve and I got our first house under contract. It was a foreclosure home, man, when that lady called me, I was scared to death, Jared. I mean, I was like, holy crap. Now what do we do? This person wants us to buy her foreclosure house, and I didn't know what to do. But we figured it out and stumbled through and actually did a flip on that one. Got that lady out of her foreclosure situation, which was great for her and her family. And we took everything over. And then from that point, we were able to go in and sell that house and made about $8,000, if I remember correctly. And we thought, holy crap, I can't believe this works. And then we lost money on the next two that we did back to back. And we thought, oh, there it is. Now we figured it out. It's not exactly like you see on TV where the people buy a house and 30 minutes later they've made $60,000 and time to find another house to flip.
Yep.
So yeah, it's not always like that, but we did learn along the way. We learned from those mistakes, and then he and I started doing some additional flips, mostly cosmetic. Did a lot of the foreclosure stuff, and then my wife got pregnant with our daughter in 2007. We had our first child, and at that point I said, you know what, he's wanting to kind of go in one direction and I'm wanting to go in another. He wanted to take on bigger projects, and I did not, especially having a new child. And so we had a very amicable split on the company, and still remain friends. We go to dinner, we still go on vacation together. Our wives are great friends. It was a really good split. And we did about 5 or 6 flips that year, and man, we just had that Midas touch. Could not do wrong. And we'd make a quick $10 or $15,000 and go skipping down the street to the next one, and life was great. And then the market crashed in '08. And like I said, we got stuck holding 5 mortgages at that time, and it
So you were
was.
flipping five at the same time.
Yes,
Okay.
and well, technically 4 plus our own personal made
Gotcha.
the fifth
Gotcha.
mortgage.
Yep.
Yeah, and so when that happened, my wife was pregnant with our second child, and it was scary. But my again, leaning back on the way that mom and dad raised you, they just kind of taught us that at an early age, again, you have to bulldoze your way through sometimes. And for us, we looked at bankruptcy and just felt like it was not the best option. Not to begrudge anybody that has declared bankruptcy in the past. I know it's a useful tool for a lot of people, but we just felt like for us in our scenario, it was just not going to be the right fit. So we did a fire sale on 2 of those houses, and the other two we ended up sticking renters in, and we were upside down about $1,000 a month between the mortgage and what we were able to collect in rent, and that was painful.
Mm.
I mean, that was, Dave Ramsey talks about life's best lessons come with zeros and dollar signs, and that was a pretty good lesson. And so then we had our second child and had really no job and no income, and had a friend down in Texas that said, "Hey, why don't you come work for us for the summer, and I'll show you what we do." And I'll never forget that feeling. It's seared in my soul. The feeling of pulling out of the driveway and looking in the rearview mirror of my Chevy Tahoe and seeing my wife holding our newborn son and holding my daughter's hand as I'm driving off to Texas for the summer to go work. It was a gut punch.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I can't even imagine that, you gotta do what you gotta do
Hmm.
in that scenario. You're leaving the family in the rearview mirror to go support them, but when times get tough,
Yeah.
you gotta make the decision you gotta make, and you did. But I like the second half of this story because I've already heard it, so I get to I get to spoil it. It's pretty cool what happens next.
Yes, yeah. So from there, I left out on a Sunday, pulled in the driveway at this place in Houston, Texas on Monday, and got a call from a guy back in Nashville that had offered me a job
Mm.
and wanted me to come in. It was a new startup company. He needed a sales manager to come and help, get a crew trained and that type of thing. And I said, man, I'm trying to be a man of my word, and I've already given this other company my commitment for the summer. but let me talk to him. And so I went into that manager's office on Thursday in Houston and said, "Hey, I've been given this opportunity, but I gave you my word I was going to be here to train your people and do this." And he looked at me and smiled, and he was a Christian, and he said, "Man, brother, what are you still doing here?" And he literally knelt down in his office, put his hand on my shoulder, prayed over me and my family, and said, "Go home."
Wow.
And that's exactly what I did. And so came home and didn't solve the fact that we were still upside down on those two rentals that we were holding, to the tune of $1,000 a month. But we had income coming in and we were able to kind of just tread water. And then we just seemed to where we couldn't get ahead because we were just constantly treading water, treading water, treading water. And then finally, 2012, I got elected mayor. 2014, I just said, you know what? I'm done treading water. I can't I can't continue to focus on being mayor and leading our community and trying to do the best that I can do for that and working this other job because being mayor was a quote unquote, part-time.
Yeah.
And then working this other job and still being upside down on these rentals. And we just kind of gotten to a point where I said, okay, maybe we should have declared bankruptcy, just gotten that offer. Where would we be now if we'd have done that? And so had dinner with mom and dad, and they said, you need to go talk to our friend Johnny, family friend, which I love. I call him Pops. Need to go have lunch or dinner with Johnny and just tell him what your situation is. So I called him. We met for lunch at this little Italian restaurant that had the traditional white paper tablecloths. And we rolled in there at 11 o'clock. And he had his scientific calculator and his pen and like two pencils and a highlighter. And he had told me to bring all of my stuff with me. And we literally sat down and went through everything. And it was a game changer for my wife and I.
Wow. Now, when you say everything, did you guys go through like your financials at the time, or he was like, "Hey, I'm going to help you get through this real estate mess. Like, here's where you're currently at. Here's what we have to do to get you out of this." Because I gotta imagine, man, like going through, it's hard to. I think it's probably hard for you or I to portray the feeling, the emotion that you have. But to the listeners, listen to this. He was holding on for dear life from '08 to 12, 13, 14. I mean, holding on for dear life. It's hard for us who did not go through that to comprehend what that's like because it's been pretty gravy, to be quite honest, since what, 13 or 14 to today.
Yeah.
We've had a couple
Yeah.
bumps in the road. But when you're holding an asset that really it got hit, I mean, I know the market got hit too, but real estate got hammered. And when you're exposed with four different flips and that happens, puts you in a rough spot. And then the emotional toll. I mean, you mentioned you're like, bro, I'm going to go to Houston just to make money for my family. Like I got two young kids,
Right.
and so here you are. It's like, all right, I can see a little bit of light, and this guy wants to help me. So what does Johnny do to kind of turn that ship around for you?
Yeah, so it was one of those aha moments, where I basically, transparent and open book, and I just laid it all out and said, this is where we're at. And he looked at everything, and Misty and I had kind of gotten back into flipping a few houses and that type of thing. We'd make, five, 10, $15,000, and then go find another one and make 5, 10, $15,000. And so we were doing that every 3 months, which was okay because it was helping to cover everything, but it wasn't. We still just couldn't seem to get ahead. And so he's looked at all the numbers and he said, Perry, what you've done is you've created a job for yourself. Now, granted, it's a really flexible job and it's a great job from the standpoint of you don't have to ask anybody's permission to take time off from work. You're never going to miss soccer practice or dance recitals and that type of thing. You're always going to be able to take time off to go on vacation whenever you want to. But what happens if you don't find the next house to flip? Your income goes back to zero. He said, what you need to do is you need to get to 10 doors as quickly as possible. And then everything is going to change for you. And I just remember, man, Jaron, when he said that, I thought, holy cow, I can't get rid of the two that I've got. Why in the world would I want to add 8 more? Like, what are you thinking? Did you not just hear everything and all of the pain and the tears that I shed over the last 2 hours?" And he said, "No." He said, You've got it completely wrong." He said, "When you get to 10 doors, what happens is at that point, if somebody moves out in the middle of the night, if a water heater goes bad, if you're down 30 days between tenants because you've got to go in and repaint and new carpet and what have you," he said the income that you'll be getting from the other 6 or 7 doors is going to carry the nut for the entire 10. It's going to cover all of the expenses. Now, granted, you may not be eating at fine steakhouses every Friday night, but it's going to cover everything and the stress is going to be off. And so I just remember thinking, okay, well, as much as I don't like this concept, I can't argue with his success because he's got, 100, doors, whatever it is. And he's doing pretty darn good. And he bought my lunch that day. And so, I said, all right, yeah, gosh. So I went home and I talked to Misty about it. And she wasn't excited either, but she said, you sat down and had lunch with him for a reason. It was laid on your heart to do so. I think we need to follow his advice. And so we said, okay, we saddled up one of those 2 houses that we had been holding since the 07, 08 crash. We finally just bit the bullet and sunk a bunch of money into it to put it on the market and sell it and broke even. And that was the happiest break even I've ever had in my entire life. That was good. The other one we still actually hold to this day. We got creative, and I know you've talked to guys that you've had on your show with creative financing and that kind of thing. So we got creative and basically did a rent to own on that one. Somebody came in and said, "Hey, we're going to give you $10,000 down, and we're going to take over all of the payments and all of the maintenance and everything else, and it's going to be ours and go." And so it's this fantastic little Hispanic family, and they've been in there since 2015, and I can count on 3 fingers how many times I've been back to that house since 2015.
Wow.
They're on autopilot. They make all of their payments auto drafted into our bank account every single month. It's beautiful. And so anyway, so from there, Misty and I got busy and we started acquiring some little duplexes and triplexes, and then we got to 10 doors. And Jaron, I swear, just like flipping a switch, it happened exactly the way Johnny said. We got to 10 doors and all of a sudden it was like, oh, I can breathe.
Yeah.
Like somebody's moving out next Friday. That's okay. I've got money in the rainy day fund. I can go in and, put new carpet in or steam clean it, and I can repaint and touch it up and put it back on the market and get it ready to go. And it was a game changer for my wife and I and our family.
That is amazing. I have a good buddy of mine who he got me into real estate. He's really, really good at real estate, all different kinds,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
single family home, multifamily, large. They own a skyscraper and they manage funds, like crushes.
Nice.
And
Nice.
he's always made the comment, and just to piggyback off what you said, when you only have one to call it 3 rental properties, you're putting yourself in a predicament
Yes.
because you could have just created for yourself a very expensive expense that can't cover itself if something were to happen. But like you're saying, the power of 10, and I like that. I've never put a number on it, but I like, hey, let's shoot for 10. When you scale, you put yourself in a position to cover underperforming assets in your portfolio with the assets that are performing as they should, like the pro forma said. And I really love that, the power of 10. Let's what you're saying is let's scale. We need to
That's
get
right.
to a scalable size that is not only going to be beneficial for us when everything's working right, because you got to have scale in the real estate game to reap the benefits, but then when things go wrong, we're going to be okay because we've got these other
Yes.
assets to pay for the underperforming performing ones. And
Yeah.
that's really cool. What was what was the shift for you like as an investor, going from, hey, I've just always flipped properties, to now I'm gonna hold them? Because I know that's hard for a lot of folks. Like once people get into the flipping game, they kind of they're just used to generating that income. Was that hard for you to say, all right, I'm going to take this guy's advice and we're just going to let it sit in the portfolio? Because I was on the other side of the coin. I have
Mhm.
always started with the long-term mindset. Like, I usually don't flip unless it's just a huge profit or it doesn't make sense as a rental. I've always been like, let's keep it as a rental, because I'm like, if I just hold these things for a while, they're going to make me wealthy. But I got a lot of friends who started on the flip side, and they love making that cash.
That's right. You know, for us, I found them both to be very complementary to each other. So my wife and I, man, she's rock solid, man. She loved going to Home Depot and helping to pick out the colors and you know, the vanities and the light fixtures and all of that type of stuff. She loved that, and she was super supportive, still is, but super supportive with that aspect of it. What I have found is, now that we have kind of done that shift over to doing the long-term game, the rentals, is that it was complimentary, because there's a lot of people that just they'll walk into a property that maybe is a C grade property, and I know you've talked about that before, something that just needs a lot of TLC. And they would walk into that property and they'd say, "Oh yeah, no, this is way too much for me. I'm not comfortable with it. You know, carpet's got to be replaced, and that window's broken, and there's a hole in the roof, and you know, there's a leak over here, and you know, there's just no way that I want that. Man, I can't buy that property fast enough." Like for me, because I've done the flipping and I understand, you know, hole in the roof, that's not that big a deal. Patch the roof. There's a water leak over there. That's not a big deal. Fix the leak. Carpet needs to be replaced. That's not a big deal. Pull it up, drop down some LVT. Like that kind of stuff doesn't intimidate me at all. And so I think because I've had that flipping experience in the background. Oh, I like that. The flipping experience, using my air quotes. Because I've had that flipping experience, it makes it pretty easy to go in and buy those properties and not get freaked out when crap hits the fan.
It's no secret that if you're going to be successful in real estate investing, you have to be able to fund your deals. Whether you're doing the BRRRR method or whether you're fixing and flipping properties for a profit, you got to be able to get to the closing table with money, and you got to have money to rehab the property. And so I personally use Backflip Capital when I need money to get to the closing table and to rehab my properties. I'm in the middle of a flip right now, and I partner with Backflip. It has been the smoothest process of all time. I literally went on their app, applied for the loan. You get pre-approved in less than 48 hours. You can lock in funding in just a few seconds with the touch of a button. Funding takes less than 2 weeks. Hello, that gives you an advantage when you're making offers on properties. And I can't say enough about partnering with Backflip Capital. They're great folks with a fantastic product that everybody listening to this should check out for the next time you go to do a BRRRR deal or fix and flip property. So here's what I want you to do. Go down to the show notes of this show. I've put a link for Backflip Capital in those notes. All you have to do is click the link so that you can download their app and get your next deal funded with Backflip. If you've been struggling finding good real estate deals, I've got a solution for you. It's REI Call Center. REI Call Center has professionally trained and managed cold callers to help you scale your real estate business. I think they give you somewhere around like 1,500 cold calls per day. Their clients have closed around $10 million from the leads they brought in. They got close to 200 clients going right now, and they're really more than just cold callers. Yes, they have their team of professionals who are making their calls, but they have weekly trainings and Q&A calls for yourself. They have training videos. They've got Slack channels with dedicated people to make sure you're successful. They've got checklists, cheat sheets, you name it. They've got you covered to make sure you are successful in your real estate journey. Well, how does it all work? Well, step one, you're going to pull a targeted list working with them from PropStream so that you can target the certain locations that you want to start buying properties in. Second, they're going to use their Zen call platform to start calling 1,500 calls a day per cold caller. They're going to then upload all the leads into Asana. You have a view of them, and you can go attack and start buying the properties that you see that pique your interest without having to do any other work. Look, I have worked a W-2 job while building my real estate portfolio. I've been raising a family the entire time, so I haven't had time to go and cold call myself. And that's where a company like REI Call Center comes into effect to be able to take that load off your plate so that you can generate leads, close more deals, and build that portfolio. You can reach out to them at reicallcenter.com, or if you go to the show notes of this episode, you will see a link that will take you directly to them. Buy your first or next real estate deal in the next 90 days guaranteed, or we'll continue coaching you until you do. That's my guarantee if you join my rental academy. I've stumbled upon a process that is so powerful that I can sit here today and say, you can come into my world and buy your first deal in the first 90 days. And if you don't, I'm going to keep coaching you until you do. What we've done in the Rental Academy is we've removed all the roadblocks for you. I've already chosen the market for you. You're going to have leads generated automatically. Myself and my team's going to work with you to analyze those leads. When you pull the trigger on a property that you want to buy and you need to fund it, we've got lenders in place. And after you've closed on it, if you need to rehab it, great. We've got contractors in place. And if you want to keep it as a rental, we've got property managers in place. So you come into our world, we plug you into a proven system, make it easy for you so you can have success in your real estate investing journey. If you're interested, you can go to cowboysacademy.com, or if you go down to the show notes of this episode, click the link that says Cowboys Rental Academy, and it will take you to your next steps there.
The way to make a lot of money over the long term in real estate is to be able to take on those properties, because the general population won't. So when you go to buy them, there's less competition. You got to think from the mind of a normal buyer. When the normal buyer walks into a home to look to buy it for their personal home, they want everything nice. I mean, some people get weirded out about the smallest stuff, like, oh, this trim is busted up, I don't know if I want to buy this house. Like, there's people that crazy about it. And so when you're able to find properties that need that TLC, you are putting yourself in a very small percentage of people who are willing to take that property on, and you're going to get it at a discount. But the beautiful thing is, if you learn the game like Perry's talking about, and like I do, to where we buy these distressed properties, but we're like, bro, at the end of the day, it is a shell of studs that is just decorated. Really, that's what a house is. It's a shell of studs. You got your concrete slab on the bottom, or your crawl space, whatever, and then you just got 2x4s, rafters, and then you just make it pretty on the inside. And so when you can get to that mindset and say, whatever's going on here, I can fix it. It can be fixed. Now, depending on what needs to be fixed is going to dictate what you need to buy the property at. There's a whole equation to how to do this thing right. But man, oh man, it's an amazing asset class to get into when you start playing in the distressed property space, because then you just make it pretty, and now it appeals to the masses. The people who snubbed their nose at it 4 months ago are paying 3 times to buy it now than what they could have to buy it on the front end and just rehab it themselves. It is insane to me. I think it's just a lack of vision. I don't know. I guess that's, lack of vision and not knowing what you're doing.
Well, and the other thing is, it gives you that kind of flexibility of being able to kind of test the waters a little bit, figure out what works and what doesn't work, but also gives you that ability to scratch that creative itch, to be able to say, gosh, I love the concept of doing new light fixtures and this and that, and what are things that I can do on a budget so that I'm not, trashing my reno budget by putting in the $600 ceiling fan. I'm putting in the $89 ceiling fan, because ultimately at the end of the day, if you're flipping a house, sometimes you have to go with the nicer ceiling fan. But if you're flipping a property to rent, that tenant that's coming into a C or B grade property, they don't care if it's a $600 ceiling fan or an $89 ceiling fan. They just want the thing to turn on and work when they flip the switch. They don't care. And so it gives you that opportunity to kind of really hone your skills and get used to that mindset of making sure you're watching your cash flow, which is the whole point of getting into rentals in the first place, is to have that cash flow.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people tend to mess up when they go to flip a property compared to keeping it as a rental. I know that's something that a lot of people I work with struggle with, is I'm going to keep this as a rental, and then next thing they know, they'll send me pictures and the house is down to the studs. And I'm like, what are you doing? I've probably had 1, maybe 2 rentals ever where I've taken it down to the studs, and it was just because it had to, and I knew it going in. But most rentals, man, it's cosmetic. You'll be amazed at what you can do with LVT flooring, paint, maybe a new countertop, and some new vanities and fans. You do that in most houses, you're you're going to give yourself a pretty good chance to be successful. You're not going to have a lot of money in the deal, but it's going to look nice and it's going to perform nice and it's quality for the tenants that come in there without you completely sinking your money. Because when you sink all that money into a rental property, guys, you are diminishing your cash on cash returns. Now, if you're doing the BRRRR method and you're going to pull that money out, well, then that's a totally different subject. But if you're just buying traditional and you sink 40 grand into a deal instead of 10 grand into a deal, you now have 30,000 of your dollars locked up into a property that didn't need to be locked up into that property at
That's
this time.
right.
You needed just 10 grand to get the property ready to rent. And then if you ever want to flip it later, then go sink the money in without a tenant being there. And then you can turn around and sell it in 3 months so you can get your money right back. The worst thing, in my opinion, that you can do is lock up money into a rental property by overspending. Now it's sitting there for years. And oftentimes, you know this, Perry, the stuff gets beat up. And so the stuff you spent money on is not in the condition it was just a few years earlier.
I would agree. And there's again shows like yours that are hyper educational for people, that in the trenches experience that you get, you'll figure out real quickly where you need to save money and where you don't. For example, ceiling fans. If I put in a $600 ceiling fan in a one bedroom rental, guess what? I'm not going to be able to get any more rent for it. Like,
Yep.
it's not like if I put in a $600 ceiling fan that I can go from $800 a month in rent to $1,000 a rent. Like, it just doesn't work that way. But you can think long term and say, okay, I can either do the $89 toilet from, one of the big box stores, or I can do the $200 toilet that's guaranteed to flush a load of golf balls down it. Okay. Or in some instances, GI Joes and Barbies. So sometimes it's worth it to spend extra on the things like the high use stuff, like toilets, or your faucets in your kitchen that get a tremendous amount of use. Don't go put the $49 Delta faucet in there. Put the $199 Delta faucet that's guaranteed to last 10 years. Buy it once, set it and forget it. So that's all stuff that you kind of learn along the way, and doing shows like yours and listening and getting educated from other people, going to real estate meetups or networking with other folks that are in that space. They'll help pull you along the way. You and I talked about it in the last show, that this network of community of real estate investors, as it's called, um, there's while we're all competitive to a certain degree, there is such a transparency and openness in this group of people. We love to sing our successes. We'll tell you about the failures. We're happy to sit down and have lunch or coffee with each other and bounce ideas. Hey, I'm looking at this quad. What do you think about the numbers on this? Would you do this deal? If you did it, how would you structure it? And it's not like, if I'm telling you that I have to worry about you calling my real estate agent and saying, hey, Perry was telling about this quad he was, last night. I need you to slide me in that deal and let me close before he can. There's not a lot of that. It's such an amazing community and space to learn from.
Yeah, everybody's very giving, and I
Hmm.
think it's because they're so excited. You kind of mentioned this, that they're doing well. The most people who get into this space are doing really well for themselves. Life's pretty good, and so they're saying, "Hey, I want to take some other people along this journey with me." There's abundance. There's so many deals to be done. You can't do them all. And
Hmm.
so why not pull people along with you? I mean, that's what my entire brand exists to do is, hey guys, I'm this redneck from South Carolina. I made this decision to start buying real estate, and this is what it did for me. You should try it too. I'll teach you how if you need help, because it's worth it and you really should do it. And that's how, there's not everybody in the real estate space isn't on social media. You can find the old man in your hometown who's been doing it longer than all of us, who knows a lot
Hmm.
more than any podcast guest or host you're listening to. But it is a fantastic community. And I encourage folks, get plugged in, go to local meetups, call. Man, I've cold called LLC owners before. I'll look at people who own properties in my
Hmm.
hometown, see who the owner of the LLC is. But hey, man, my name's Jaron. I'm a new investor in Anderson. Like, could I take you to lunch? Like, that's how you make connection. You have one conversation. Now I'm going on a tangent, but one conversation with the right person can completely change your
Oh
life.
yeah.
100%. But if you're not putting yourself in those scenarios and giving yourself the opportunity to have those conversations, then you'll never have that one conversation that changes your life, or the 5 conversations that gives you the firepower you need to be successful in real estate.
I would agree. So at the ripe old age of, at least of this recording, 51, I'll be 52 next month. Um, I'm a much better student of life now than I was when I was in high school or in college, because I love to learn. I mean, don't get me wrong. Being a product of the '80s, I love my hair metal, but I now find myself when I'm in the gym, I'm listening to podcasts through my headphones. When I'm in the car, I'm listening to podcasts. My kids are like, "Oh my God, Dad, another episode of, this podcast or that one." I'm like, yeah, absolutely, because we're going to learn and I'm going to continue to educate myself. I went to a real estate conference back in Nashville a few months ago, and it was a multifamily live conference. Bill Allen and Jason Yarusi and his wife Peely were just some amazing speakers. And one of the things that really stuck out to me in that was they were talking about how they structure deals, and they said, when we're talking with someone about buying their multifamily, small apartment complex or larger apartment complex, whatever it is, we always kind of go in with the mindset of it's either going to be your price but our terms,
Mm.
or our price but your terms. If it's going to be, we're going to come in and offer you, $250,000 less, that's fine. It's going to be our price, but it's going to be your terms. Okay, well, if we do that, we have to close in 7 days and have to, no financial contingencies and that kind of thing. Fine, that's what we'll do. We've got backers and investors that will help us do that. Or we're going to get creative. I'll give you a full price offer for what you're asking, but I'm going to go and I'm going to get traditional financing for a certain percentage of it. And then you're going to hold the note for the other percentage of it. And it's going to be at this interest rate. And you're going to be guaranteed income over the next 5 or 10 years, but it's not going to be a problem you have to worry about anymore. Those are things that help shift that mindset by people just being willing to take action. And then again, kind of going back to that creative piece, and just the network and the community around you. Right outside of Nashville, my wife and I went under contract a couple of years ago on a little mobile home park. And I just knew in my heart that this was a deal. Felt like God had just literally dropped this one right in our lap, and had a wholesaler that called and said, "Hey, I know you've never bought a mobile home park before, but I really think that you ought to take a look at this one." Well, I had just finished a couple of days earlier in the gym listening to a podcast with Brandon Turner on Bigger Pockets, and he was talking about mobile home parks. And I thought, well, that dude's a whole lot smarter than I am. And if he says it's a good investment, then I need to take a look at it. So we went down, we took a look at it, we put it under contract, and I just could not get the financing done for it. I went to 5 different local banks that we already had established relationships with or had done deals with in the past, whether it was a buy and hold or a fix and flip or a BRRRR strategy. And I just could not get, "Oh yeah, man, that looks like a great deal, but we don't lend on mobile home parks." Well,
Banks do not like to lend on mobile home parks, for all the
they
listeners. There are some who will, and you'll
there
hear the
are.
rest of the story, but most of them won't.
That is correct, and I didn't know that, but I learned quickly. But still, just felt like it was a deal that needed to be done, and so called a good friend of ours that I really respect that does real estate investing. His name is Michael Gomez. He's got an amazing agency in Nashville, and he called him and said, "Hey man, uh, I've got this deal down in down an hour or so outside of Nashville, and I feel like it's a good deal on this mobile home park, but I can't get the financing. Do you have any connections I need to reach out to?" And he said, "Yeah, my family and I are on vacation this week, but when I get back into Nashville, let's connect." And I said, "Oh, we're on vacation too. Where are you at?" And he said, "Oh, I'm down on 30A in the Florida Panhandle." And "Oh my gosh, I'm literally 30 minutes from you." So we met the next night, may or may not have had a beer, sat down, talked through it, and he said, "I got a guy." And the next day, he put me in touch with a banker in that same small hometown where this mobile home park was. I called the guy, and he said, "It's really ironic that you call. I just saw that park was for sale. We used to have the mortgage on that mobile home
Wow.
park about 10 years ago. We'd love to work with you. It's a great little park. That's not by accident, man, Jaron. That's a total God thing that all of that just laid out exactly that way. And so 30 days later, we closed on the mobile home park, and it's been rocking and rolling ever since.
Wow. But if you're not networking, you don't
That's
ever get
right.
that deal done. If you're not
That's
working
right.
together. I'm telling you, this game comes down to, in my opinion, networking and deals.
Mm-hmm.
And those a lot of times will even go hand in hand. But if you
Mm-hmm.
network and you have deal flow, the rest of it tends to fall in place as you go. Now, there's obviously bumps across along the road, and there's going to be other work you have to do. But man, those two things, and starting with networking, because a lot of times, like I said, networking will bring you the deal flow, and it'll put you in a powerful position. You said last time we talked, and I thought this was a fantastic quote: "Don't look for the perfect deal. Find a deal and make it perfect."
Mm-hmm.
I thought
Yeah.
that was good.
Thank you. Yeah, so not having a clue what I was doing with a mobile home park, how I was going to make that work, or how we were going to put that together. That's like the most perfect analogy for this. So we get this deal under contract. 30 days later, we get it closed. I go in and we start fixing up a couple of the units. We dress up the park a little bit. It's looking really good and sharp. We go in and raise the rents. Not a lot, but a little bit each week, because those people were paying by the week, still are. And we went in and said, okay, so we've been doing this. We had to borrow 20% to get it down from another investor, to get the down payment to do the deal. And I went back to the bank 9 months later and I said, "Hey, what's the chances that we might be able to BRRRR this mobile home park?" And he said, "Well," he said, "park looks great. Let me go back and talk to the lending committee here at the bank. What are you trying to do?" And I said, "I'd love to be able to pull my 20% back out so I can pay off my investor." And he said, "Send me over the new rent rolls. Let me go to bat for you." He calls me the next week after their loan committee meeting and he said, "Hey, yeah, we can do that. We're going to loan, or we're going to, increase the debt load on the property, but we're going to give you your 20% back out." And so we went and BRRRR'd the mobile home park. We took a deal that wasn't perfect, and now we're in that mobile home park for $0 out of pocket. I mean, who would have ever thought that you could buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat on a mobile home park? But that's exactly what we did. And so we took a deal that was good, and we made it perfect.
Wow. That's good stuff. It's like I always say the baseball analogies: hit your singles, and a lot of times they'll turn into doubles, triples, or home runs. But if you're just looking
Hmm.
for a home run off the bat, you're never going to get into real estate.
Yeah,
Year one pro formas are year one pro formas. But what does it look like in year two, year three, year four, year five? As tenants are paying down debt, the price of the home's going up, rents are increasing. The
yeah,
longer you're in this game, the better chance you have of having a lot of success and turning good deals into great deals. Perry, thank you for being on today. Where can folks find you?
dude. Instagram is great. My wife actually runs my social media for me. She's amazing, and it's the Flippin Mayor. That's Flippin, the Flippin Mayor, on Instagram. Or I don't mind giving out my cell phone number again, because we're just an open community and we try to be transparent. And that's 615-336-3401. Call or text, or people can Gmail, or send me email via Gmail, and the flippinmayor@gmail.com. Again, without the G, Flippin, the flippinmayor@gmail.
Love it. You guys go follow and reach out to Perry. And if you're watching this, whether you listen to it on podcast or watching it on YouTube, take a screenshot, tag us on Instagram, post in your stories. Tag me at Finance Cowboy. Tag Perry at the Flippin' Mayor. Both of us would like to personally thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to this episode. Perry, this was fantastic information. Thank you so much for speaking to our audience. And I will look forward to talking to you soon.
Absolutely. You guys make sure that y'all hit this up, man. Give a like, leave a comment for Jaron, man. He's rocking it, dude. You're killing it, man. I love it.
Thanks, Perry. Talk soon,
Hey,
man.
God bless.